Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ratliff Mandolin's weekly production diary series. I'm Audie, and I thought as long as we're having a diary series, how about we just have an episode with diary entries, and that's what we're going to do. Today is Monday, and what we have done today is we have taken some great big boards. This board, as wide as it is, believe it or not, was about 9 feet long. We've cut these things up to make our blank parts for the mando-cellos that are going to be in this batch. We're going to do two, one guitar-shaped K5 copy and one mandolin-shaped K4 copy. And so we started with this big curly maple board, and by the time today is over with, we have the sides stripped out for the mandolin. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but they are just as curly can be. And we stripped out a board, split it up, and I wound up with 8 side strips, which is way too many to do, so we're going to have plenty of extra. I got the neck blank out of this board for our K5 mandolin, and I come up with book-matched pieces for the back. Very nice, very curly. Of the scrap that was left over, we have this big chunk that I don't know what we're going to do with, but we come up with two 2-inch thick chunks, and we'll split those right down the middle, and I'll have 2 single piece backs and 2 more. So I wind up with 4 single piece mandolin backs, and of the 2-piece backs to glue, then we've got 3 of those. So that's what will come out of the scrap when we cut out the stuff for our mando-cello. Now moving on to the K4, which is not going to be curly maple, but bird's eye maple. I had a, not quite as big as this, but I had a pretty good size bird's eye maple block, and we cut the sides out of it. Again, I got 8 strips out of it. Nice, pretty bird's eye maple sides. I got the neck blank. And just like the K5, I had one board that we just split in 2, and we have a nice bird's eye maple back for our mandolin-shaped K4 copy. And out of the scraps of that, I got 3 mandolin neck blanks and a split back, 2-piece back out of it, and I got all of these chunks out of it. That one went over there, I'm sorry. 2 or 3 chunks here that we can make peghead ears out of and that sort of thing, and peghead ears out of that as well. So that is diary entry number 1. Let's move on to diary entry number 2, which is, as promised in last week's video, we have put our wooden binding on this Gibson guitar repair that we have, and we used the K5 mandolin binding gluing jig to do it with. So the thing sits in the jig, and we put the binding in, we spread the glue, we start wrapping it with string like you can see right here. I'll give you a good close-up of that. And our guitar tomorrow will be ready to clean this binding up and sand it down and get it shaped the way we want it. And hopefully we won't be having this thing here much longer anyway. We're closing in on getting it out of here. So that's about all I've gotten done today. My students will be here in just a few minutes. So we'll see you tomorrow. Today's diary entry will center mainly around the Gibson guitar, and I'll tell you what happened and why. When we glued the back on, and I started taking measurements to see how thick and how wide we needed this piece of wooden binding, I realized that this binding channel varied a great deal, in fact almost as much as 30 thousandths in a few places from one to the other. So I had to cut the binding itself, the dimensions of the deepest and thickest part, And then when we glued it on, we just had to let the excess hang over on the shallower, narrower parts. So I set out this morning saying we're going to have to take this binding where it's overhanging down to the level of the finish. Now, not being able to touch this finish for fear of screwing it up, I told myself we're just going to work in 3/4 of an inch increments, and we're going to work our way all the way down with a razor knife and a little scraper and a little piece of sandpaper, and that's exactly what we done until we put everything down where it feels just like it would with a piece of plastic binding. Now I have put the color on this binding with some furniture repair color pens, and I bought these specially for this particular repair. This is a Minwax wood finish wood color pen, and Minwax usually has some sort of finish in it as well rather than just a stain, so I'm going to assume that these pens are much the same way, and they feel like it, so they're just still a little sticky. And then when they dry tomorrow, we bought some shellac. I'm going to take a small tiny paintbrush and put a little coat of shellac on there to lock in that color. I have done some test polishing on the top and the back, and there is a reasonably nice shiny finish underneath years of crud here. So once we have a little bit of shiny on the binding itself with the shellac, then we're going to polish these guitar proper in an effort to get some sort of comparable level of shininess, and that's probably what we'll do tomorrow. But that whole thing has taken the better part of today, so I'm going to finish my day out by going into the big room and sanding down those mando-cello sides that we looked at yesterday in an effort to get them ready to bend in the molds tomorrow or maybe the next day. So I will talk to you again tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, and we'll see you then. Wednesday afternoon here, and I spent most of the day with this Gibson guitar cleaning and polishing it, and so we're closing in on it looking halfway decent. In the process of cleaning and polishing it, 2 or 3 places I eat through on the wooden binding through my single coat of shellac. So I've touched the color up and put an extra coat of shellac on it right now. We're going to let that dry. And then I also worked on the keys. And we had a set of keys that were just in pretty bad shape, and I had hoped to get in my junk box and get some parts from the junk box and fix the original keys. But what I wound up doing was taking the parts off, some of the parts off of the original keys, and putting them on another plate, set of keys, and kind of fixing up something else with the original parts. And I actually do have a set of plates here that are exact matches for the original plates. The shapes, the mounting holes, and everything are exactly where they were on the original plates. So I have now taken bits and pieces from about 3 or 4 sets of keys, and I have one really nice set of period keys that actually have the same plate, or the same type of plate that was on the originals for the guitar. So that's where we're at with that. So I have polished about all I feel like polishing today. Yesterday we did run all of those mando-cello sides through, got them all thickness down, and I think I'm going to go in there and see if I can't smooth sand them. Right now they're about 40 grit sandpaper, so I'd like to get them a lot smoother before I try to bend them, which I may actually be able to give that a shot tomorrow. We'll see. So stick with us. Well, you know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men. And I had all the hopes in the world for these tuners, especially after we spent so much time on them yesterday, getting them up and going. But this particular worm gear right here is all but worn out. Now, as long as you don't have tension on the strings, it turns just fine. But when you put tension on the strings, it don't work right. I spent most of today putting the tailpiece on. I replaced the first 5 frets here, cleaned everything up, tailpiece, cleaned the bridge up, put the tuners on, fixed the nut. We were just good to go. I thought, you know what, I'm going to just stay with it until I get strings on this thing. And started tuning it up, and this one kept jumping, kept slipping, kept slipping. So we are back to square one on the tuner issue. Now, I revisited the originals. They're terribly rusty, and of the 6, they don't have, only 1 button is left. But we know that these cogs and these posts will fit on these. So if I can clean these up, put the cogs and posts that we cobbled together yesterday on these tuners, and I have a packet of buttons, plastic buttons, that we could put new buttons on these tuners. Then maybe tomorrow we'll be able to string this guitar up. Now, I did not get to the mando-cello sides at all. It is 5 minutes till 6 in the evening, and like I said, I have run into a brick wall. I'm going to just quit for the day and start all over again in the morning. And so we'll check back with you sometime tomorrow. Now it is Friday morning, and in an effort to address the tuner issues with this guitar, I resurrected the old plates. Here's some shots of the old plates and how rusty they were, and after they've been cleaned up and then rebuttoned. And so what we have in the end here is a fairly nice clean set of tuners, a little flimsier than the ones that we had yesterday, but those didn't work, so we got to do something. These have the original plates, about 4 of the original posts, and 3 or 4 of the original cogs. So these are the ones that we're going to use, put on right now, and certainly hope that they will take the tension of the strings and work wonderfully. We're about to find out. So she works just fine, and I am thrilled to bits. Now, I have been called away on family business, so I'll be gone for the rest of the day. We'll close this week's video off, and I never did get around to bending those mando-cello sides, did I? So we'll be able to look forward to doing that next week, and be sure to check back with us then. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the end, and we'll see you next week.